Call the roll.
Bird.
Here.
McGinn.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Mormon.
Here.
Pickla.
Here.
Stucker. Here. Ray.
Number 2, approval of agenda.
Any changes, Your Honor?
No changes this evening.
Motion approved.
Second. Call the roll.
McGinn.
Yes.
Stein.
Yes.
Mormon.
Yes.
Pickla.
Yes.
Stucker. Yes. Ray.
Yes.
Bird.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, presentation, petitions, other communications. A, presentation on community solar programs. And Greg, you asked.
Yeah, TJ? There you are. Come on up.
Apologize, I've never been to this before, but this is a good experience. But my name is TJ Cliff, and I am a solar designer for Trusted Energy. I'm based out of Storm Lake, but I'm a Boone resident, so I live in Boone, but design solar energy systems for Trusted Energy. And Boone will begin to see more and more solar energy systems going up in the next few months. As homeowners and businesses are beginning to realize with the cost of solar energy being significantly lower than it has been in the past 5 to 10 years, it's a much more economical and cost-saving measures. And especially, a lot of people might be noticing that Iowa cities, particularly Boone, is almost a targeted market for solar energy because of the utility provider and policies of that utility provider. And I know many companies are targeting Boone and the businesses in Boone. And what I've noticed as a solar designer, because I see the ads and things like that, I see they're taking advantage of unsuspecting victims is what they're really doing. I first saw this and then I took action. So then I usually would design commercial size systems. I said, why not organize a Boone County kind of group buy to use the purchase power of a group to get everyone a cost of the system at a reasonable price and significantly reduced price when we start factoring in more and more people coming on board. And to give you an idea of the unsuspecting victims, I clicked on the Facebook ad, several Facebook ads, and had people design systems for me in my house. And those companies are typically out-of-state companies that will sell a system in Iowa and then come and try to find some electrician to put it in for them. And for a system for my house was going to cost over $50,000, and the lowest was $40,000 for my house. I designed my own system, what it would cost with my company that I worked for, and it was half the cost. So you can see that is what Boone residents don't know where to go for solar. I know I've designed several systems for people. They go, I just don't know where to go for solar. You click on Facebook or you go search online. You really don't know who to trust, who to use, and so that way, my effort has been to give people that cost of the system at a low price, and then some 15 or upwards of 20. The deadline for this first kind of group buy that I put together will be next Wednesday, but there are about 15 to 20 residents and businesses in Boone County that will be utilizing solar energy, and most of them are going to save upwards of $3,000 to $4,000 or $5,000 on the cost of their system based on the price that I gave them originally. That was half the price of other companies that are giving them cost of systems. To give you an idea of the cost of savings for solar, one Boone homeowner that I put a system together for, it'll be installed later this year, and the estimated electric savings over 30 years, they'll save over $100,000 in electricity savings by their solar use of their solar energy system. And that will take care of all of their electric needs for the next 30 years. So it will fully offset their load. And so to give you an idea of there's tax credits available, is the homeowners get a 26% federal tax credit right off the bat. 26% of that system is a tax credit against the tax liability. And homeowners get that. Businesses get tax credit for federal, tax credit for state, 11%. And then businesses, as a business expense, get to depreciate as well. So roughly 60% of the cost of the system for a business is against the tax liability that gets right off potentially year one if that tax appetite is there. So I wanted to make this known to the council, be aware that there's potential for residents and homeowners in Boone County to utilize solar energy, or Boone area to utilize solar energy to significantly reduce electrical costs, provide sustainable means for providing their own electricity, and perhaps the possibility of organizing to a greater extent a community group buy where more people get involved. And I know that it has been talked about in the past before COVID hit, that Waukee had done something similar, and that Boone might be a beneficial location to utilize that type of thing. And I would really offer my skills, expertise, and experience to help organize that and facilitate that. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
KB, set a public hearing for July 5th, 2021 at 6 P.M. on the proposed plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for the Marshall Street resurfacing project. So,
Second.
call the roll.
Stein,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Pivot,
Yes.
Stucker, yes, Ray,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
C, set a public hearing for July 5th, 2021 at 6 P.M. on the proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, estimate of cost for the water treatment facilities, exterior wall repair, and repointing project.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mormon,
Yes.
Pivot,
Yes.
Stucker, yes, Ray,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
A, B, set a public hearing for July 19th, 2021 at 6 P.M. on the voluntary annexation of the property as described below.
second,
Call the roll.
Pivot,
Yes.
Stucker, yes, Ray,
Yeah.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Okay, number 4, report of standing committees, policy administration, BJ.
No report.
Public safety, Stephen.
Report.
Not this time.
So if you have anything, we'll find out next Monday.
Utility committee, Steve.
Discuss future improvements of the wastewater plant.
So in the last utility meeting, we had a discussion about our wastewater plant. We have businesses here in town that send us what we call BODs, which is waste, and there are certain environmental regulations through DNR and how much we can take. Our plant is at its capacity at the present time. Ag Certain asked us to take some additional on, which we, at this time, we cannot. In addition, Ag Certain is planning a major expansion. I think they're looking at over the next few years. We're talking 5 to 7 years. And that would create more of these BOD waste that would need to come through the wastewater plant, or they would build their own system out on site when they did it. In meetings with them, their question is does the city want to handle this, or do we want them to do this ourselves? I will tell you that we've had businesses before inquire about coming to Boone and had significant BODs that they would need to get rid of that we could not take, so it wasn't a fit, at least at that time. As you know, we talked about the disinfectant UV project several times up here at council. That project is going to be started at the wastewater plant probably next month. That is a year-long process to complete that. So no, obviously construction could be done when that's going on down there. However, what we talked about at utility committee is it worth having a study done to see what would be needed down at the wastewater plant to increase our capacity, make improvements down there so that we could accept more of these BODs, which increases our sludge, which increases the amount that we truck out to the Thompson Field in the sludge pit where we dump this stuff at. So we talked about the study at utility. I think a study would take a while and it could be significant cost. But staff is going to need some direction from council at some point if we want to move forward with something like this. Ag Certain is waiting to hear, what we might want to do in this regard. And like I said, the study could take 6 months. It could take several years to start the process at wastewater for this project if you want to make those improvements. So utility committee talked about the study and then they decided to bring it to full council for discussion. Mind you, we're talking, if we, according to estimates I got from Dan before he left, if we were to take on what they're asking at their current processing, not counting the expansion, we're looking at up to 1.5 million. I think that if we looked at their expansion of what they're planning, it could be, according to Dan, it could be up to 6 million on the improvements. The plant is 22 years old. One of the questions that came up was, is there enough room out there where the current one is to make it have an expansion, or would it need to go somewhere else? I think that would be looked at in the study. So that's where we are with the wastewater plant. That's why we discussed it at utility. So I'll try to answer any questions you have. Utility committee, Stephen and Terry and David, if you have anything to add, please do.
This does generate revenue. At the treatment plant. Dan said for every 1,000 units, it generates about $200,000 in revenue a year. So, and we had talked about increasing it to accommodate ag services, but also putting a 30% factor on that, so we didn't have to turn down any additional businesses if they should have to come and make a proposal. So we had a backup, so that's why that cost is the way it was.
Correct. And with the expansion that Ag Service talking about, I think you're talking about the certified site out there, and you're talking about, I think there would need to be planning to go farther north and expand the certified site, particularly if we're talking about bringing rail in. To bring that in and for them to make a loop and everything, I don't think there's enough land on the certified site. In the meetings with Exert, I see Dan is here. I don't put him on the spot. Dan Culhane from AGDC. Dan brought Exert to the table to have these discussions. And Dan, if you have anything to add about that meeting or anything.
No, Bill, I think you covered it very well, and I think it's a long-term strategy. They've taken a facility that was in one place 2 years ago, brought it to here, and as they continue their production, they see a trajectory that's pretty significant. It includes additional facilities over, like Bill said, 5 to 7 year build out. But the first couple buildings we have in the next 2 to 3 years, if the stars align for the business, for the water treatment, for a number of other things. So it's really encouraging. They're looking at the vast majority of the property out there and saying they can envision how they can use all that property for their expansion, which means significant capital investment as well as meaningful job employment opportunities. So it's encouraging.
And there's a conversation going on right now with Exert and the landowners. There's no update on that, but they are having conversations. Thanks, Dan.
I think in terms of economic development, I think that really, if we study this and know where we're at, it's worth getting inquiries from other businesses. Yeah, you gotta have the answer. You can't just say no, or just let it sit. It's incumbent upon us to do that. I would strongly suggest that council support a study so we know where we're at and what we need.
I'd like to see that. So we just, if we're gonna grow, look at what we do. I agree.
So staff can begin working on getting the stuff together to request and throughout RFPs for study. Yeah, I really can't advise cost-wise on it. I think Terry mentioned in the meeting, it could cost up towards $50,000. It's a pretty extensive study. This is something that we didn't budget for this. It's not in there, so this would be paying for this would be a budget amendment. paid as much as you could out of the current budget, but hopefully certainly could be some use of reserves.
Could be a relatively quick survey if there's not enough room there. So that's the first thing we determined, if we had the room to expand. So we're not- There's not much land. Could be quick.
Okay, so what I'm getting from the elected officials, we're going to move forward to investigate and study to look at expansion of our wastewater plant to handle the BODs and the waste. There would be a motion for that. So that's
Second.
Call the roll.
Stucker? Yes. Ray?
Yes.
Bird?
Yes.
McGinn?
Yes.
Stein?
Yes.
Mormon?
Yes,
Hookup?
Yes.
I'll speak to that.
Oh, we will have a meeting. Tonight. July
14th, I believe.
14th.
Utility meeting.
Okay, next up, economic development, Greg.
Okay, first item, discuss 628 Story Street. Started by handing it off to Councilmember Warren.
as you guys are all aware, we voted to purchase the property at Story Street, the old depot. It's been in the works for quite some time securing this location, and we finally got the job done, doing large part to City Administrator Scare and the meetings that they held along with Dan. We're excited to announce it's our intent to build the rec center there, the new community center. It's a quality of life project. It's been on our radar for quite a while. I headed up that committee on the initial one, so I'm working in conjunction with economic development on this new project. They asked me to get involved because of my involvement with the other one, so I'm going to do that. So it's kind of exciting news, and I'm going to turn it back over to Councilman Picklap to give you some of the details.
Moving forward, first phase we're going to be looking at is course demolition. We did a tour last week of the building. It's in rough shape, which we all kind of knew, but we have the confirmation of that. So moving forward, we're going to be targeting demolition planning. Councilmember Mormon's going to be working with staff on that one. And we're going to be starting looking at grant possibilities at the state and federal level as well, utilizing our relationships and also working with CDC. So moving forward, I want to emphasize that our starting point is right now, but we are not staying here. So we plan to have some progress here in the next 3 to 6 months. That's our target.
Are you interested in reopening the committee then?
I don't know, it's up to ED, since it's in the ED's court now. I think until we get the demolition phase under control and figure out how we're going to finance this. I don't know, what do you think? You're in the chair.
As of right now, we're focusing on using city funds and demolition. So there's really no need for any other ongoing meetings or community stuff. We will have community meetings, we will have community input, but right now we're just focusing on demolition. That's the top priority.
Questions?
Item number 2, discuss chamber and CVB. I am glad to report we actually had a meeting. Chris Walker from the CVB, Joe Williams, who's the chamber legal representative, excuse me, myself, and Gary Nystrom, who is a private citizen and also as the chair of the CIE, Central Expo. He sat in on a meeting on this because they also have a contract with CVB. So we sat down and over the course of an hour have a preliminary document that's been accepted by both boards. The legal representatives are finishing up the language on it. We're moving forward with it, and both parties have agreed in principle to everything we discussed. So we can move forward on this side of it. That being the case, I'd like to table any discussion on my item for tonight until we have that. both parties inquired about it, and I promised both parties that if we had substantial progress, which we do, and both parties seem to be more than willing to sign on to this document, there's no need to have any further discussion. So any future discussion of withdrawing support for Puffer or other chamber events like this would be something that takes on a case-by-case basis, but to me, it's no longer part of this discussion right now. Any other questions on this?
This was the time as well we were going to discuss, I believe, first Thursdays.
First Thursdays.
And council support for Puffer and the amount of assistance that council felt comfortable to give Puffer. As you know, the dates were changed, which I think this body all agreed that it was a good thing. So August 6th, I will say that the first Thursday in August is August 5th, which is Thursday, and I'm assuming that that's in conjunction with Puffer Boy Days. And then you have the first Thursday in July. Those are very, to get ready for those because there's alcohol served, so the fence needs to be up, and there's requests for picnic tables. That's very labor intensive. As you know, for the first one in June, the city pretty much handled it with Public Works, hauling all the picnic tables up, tearing it down, and then with the fence as well. So staff needs some guidance on, and I think Holly has some things to say, so I'll shut up here in a minute, but staff is going to need some guidance on what your expectations are and what staff can do as far as the one in July, as well as the one in August, up with the Puffer Fest.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. On June, we committed to those resources because it was also in conjunction with the green space kickoff. So we didn't set a precedent, we just committed to it because it was the green space kickoff along with the first Thursday launch. Now, we also committed $5,000 to Puffer. That's in the bills payable that we approved for this upcoming fiscal year. So we've already allocated that money. We're not discharging it yet until we have everything finalized, but we have that money allocated as well, along with all the traditional Puffer support we've always done.
Do we need to discuss Puffer now? Is that discussion?
Well, I think you correct me if I'm wrong, I think the expectation from the committee is that Public Works does the manual labor and bringing of all the picnic tables for the event. And I don't know if that means that we're also taking them back, or I'm assuming it does. So I need some guidance on that. If the city is okay with that, or if like the body here is okay with that, he wants to do that. I've already had that conversation with JR. And we will help it any way we can. The thing that I would mention is it can't be something that just call up at 1 o'clock and say, hey, I need this. It's got to be put on paper and planned so that JR's people, he can, plan for it so that he can set away time. This does take them away from their other duties when they're doing this. So we need some sort of a plan or timeline, things like that. So if this council wants us to do that, I will certainly make sure that it happens. But that's what we're looking for, guidance on that this evening.
I'm fine giving the traditional support to Puffer, as long as it plans out with yourself and Public Works, so it doesn't impact other city operations. So as much as possible,
Okay.
as much as
Yes, it
possible.
will impact.
But I'm fine with the lending additional city support when they need it for Puffer. Because we committed to the early date as well, because I think it's important, especially coming out of COVID.
Agreed. So I'm looking on the table, I'm assuming it's okay to offer Public Works support for this festival. Yeah. And if I could go one step further and ask about the July one, what are you thinking on that for the first Thursday in July? I would tell you that I was, Councilman Byrd and myself and Ollie was up there as well, tearing down that night. It was a very good event, it went very well, but doing is time consuming. And then the next morning I went up with Public Works and Ollie was there as well. And it probably took 3 hours, 2 hours, and then add on the time for taking the picnic tables back. So a little bit more than 2 hours, tearing it down. So is that the responsibility of Public Works to do that, or is that going to be done by volunteers?
So I have some prepared remarks and formal ask as well. First Thursdays is a partnership and a concept that was developed to infuse community pride and pedestrian traffic downtown. This is an Arts Commission initiative, first and foremost, relying solely on volunteers for the setup and tear down, as well as the hosting. The Chamber is a partner in the promotion of the events and carries the liquor license and the insurance for the beer sales, all of which are served by a volunteer nonprofit organization raising funds for local projects, except with the exception of Puck Days in August. I also see this as the city as an integral partner to use the green, with the use of the green space and the use of the picnic tables. I'm simply asking for the delivery and the pickup as well. In my estimation, this is 2 to 3 hours per month. The first event, we had 16 picnic tables. That took approximately 2 hours to deliver and 2 hours to pick up the next day. And I think going forward, we could use 8 to 10 picnic tables because I don't anticipate the same crowd for the consecutive Thursdays. We do have July 1st and August 5th remaining, with the potential and interest in September and October in conjunction with the farmers market. The relocation of the farmers market and the vendors have had an incredible success in June. There's also continued positive feedback from the restaurants and storefronts that stay open on Thursdays. First Thursdays, as we've mentioned, are a direct link to rebuilding our local community and the emotional and social benefits of gathering in a post-COVID environment. As we've mentioned, the initial green space dedication brought over 400 people downtown, with over $2,500 in the pockets of local restaurants and $1,000 raised for the Rotary second phase of the welcome train. I've asked that Public Works, with no objection to this task, please discuss this further and allow the delivery and pick up of the picnic tables.
Sure, the only, if I could ask just one thing, the ask needs to come through me for Public Works, and then I'll direct Public Works to do it if that's what this body wants. But the ask really needs to come to me if I could ask.
So the setup and a tear down beyond delivery and pick up of picnic tables, that's all volunteers.
Correct.
In the fencing.
Who delivers the fence?
Well, the delivery of the fencing has to be Public Works, because we don't have.
Right, in the beginning, because there aren't, the fencing's on skids, so that's just Public Works picking it up with the forklift, driving up, dropping it off, go get the second one, bring it up, drop it off. So if I understand, it's not the responsibility of Public Works to put up the fence, or do you want them to put up the fence for, I think we're talking about July and August.
I can do it if that's what's needed.
Takes us about an hour. So that's
That's why we're having this discussion tonight, so you can all tell me what you want staff to do, and I'll make sure it gets done.
I'll shoot for them and ask for the setup of the fencing also, but if that's gonna impede the picnic tables. I really need a picnic table, so.
Sure.
So I'm assuming you're also asking to waive all the fees.
The delivery of the picnic table?
No, for this rental of the space, that's it.
Yes, but we covered that in the initial green space meetings. For the Arts Commission to utilize the green space.
But we actually covered that in the meeting that we had when we set up that green space. Justin was there and we set up the form for the thing. And we said we weren't going to waive fees.
But the Arts Commission is a city commission.
Right, but you have a budget.
Would you rather see the budget pay for? the
I'm just saying,
green space
Holly,
or fund and events and making.
who's gonna pay for the Kaibos? Who's gonna pay for spring green and stuff? Because that fund, that account is limited. So where's that gonna come from if we don't charge fees? If we start waiving fees for everything, where's that money gonna come from to do all that? To maintain it, to make improvements, whatever.
I think that.
I don't have a problem with waiving fees for you for the Arts Council in June and or July and August. August is in conjunction with Puffer, that all the stuff's gonna be there anyway, right? And I don't have a problem post-COVID doing that in June, but going forward, I think we have to reconsider that, otherwise that account is gonna get drained, and then that will fall under the city.
Well,
That's, I mean, that was the intent. We all sat here, it was a unanimous decision not to waive fees.
And I think that for 2022, we can look at a budget and what it takes
Right.
to put these on.
And I don't have a problem with that, but understand, the lines are blurred here a little bit. Because it's a city event, but it's a chamber event. It's a farmer's market event, but it's a city event. So where are the lines drawn? You're using the city event to waive all the fees. And yet it's a chamber event and a farmer's market event. Does that make any sense?
Well, I guess to that point too, if a fee were charged, where would it come from? Is it split equally between all the entities, or is it coming from one entity? Might be a,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's gonna sponsor it? Is Chamber gonna sponsor it? I don't know. I mean, Chamber's probably paying for the entertainment, right?
No, the Arts Commission.
Arts Commission's gonna pay for the
Yes.
one in July. I'm just saying, we all sat here, it was a unanimous decision about not waiving fees. Am I correct?
It was, because we were worried it was gonna become a slippery slope and we get requests after request after request. After request. We had one before we even had the green space kickoff. Someone asked.
And Phil's already received requests to waive fees, right?
Yes. And I have not to this point. It's at the direction of the council of what your goal was.
And I think that there are further discussions on the use of the green space, but I look at this as an investment in showing what the green space can do to host other things down the road that would generate funds, but to have a city commission pay the city where the only opportunity for making money here is the sale of the beer sales. And that's going to other local nonprofits, such as the Rotary, and finishing their phase 2 of their project. So I don't think anyone's asking for something free so we can sell concert tickets and someone gets rich off of this. I think we're infusing downtown and we're benefiting the farmers market.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, there's limited funds within the green space account. So when that's gone, it's gone. And then we're gonna have to come to the city and say, who's gonna rent the Kairos? Who's gonna pay for spring green? Who's gonna do all that maintenance stuff? Where's that money gonna come from? If you remember, when we were in the planning phases of this and we were trying to make this space self-sufficient so that it would generate revenue and we could keep the space going. Okay, but now we have waived virtually every fee so far going forward with that thing. We spent $8,000 on that barricade and the racks to carry it. $8,000 out of that account, right? Wouldn't it be close to that?
For the fencing?
For the rack came out of the account, the fencing came out of another account.
Low levels, so.
Right, the Lobs and Six. That's all I'm saying. I just want to know how we're gonna sustain this space if we're gonna keep waiving the fees. And
So
like I said, this year, I'm fine with it. I don't have a problem with it, but now you're talking about October or September and October on top of it. I don't know. I mean, we sat in this meeting, we sat in a meeting for an hour and a half, and everybody voted unanimously not to waive fees for any reason. It was blanket. Because we said, once we started doing it, it was gonna happen over and over and over again. Right?
And just to be clear, we didn't put the waiver on the fees to rent the space and use the space and plug in and use the electrical. It was, someone could go up and set up an amp and
Absolutely.
and do something like that. You can use the green space for free as long as it's not reserved. It was just reserving it, using it, electrical hookups on the stage and everything else. That was the only thing we had on the condition for the fees, right?
Right, so if somebody wants to do an acoustical thing up there, and there's nobody, it's fine. So, for now, I don't have a problem with waiving it, but I think we need to re-examine this going forward, if we're going to try to make this space self-sustainable. If you remember right, Holly, when we were doing this before the building was even up, we offered this space to Chamber.
I do remember that.
I offered it to Chamber. I said, we'll give it to you. Parks will mow it.
And there was a different director and a different staff,
Right.
and we're in a different position now, and I would like to use the green space for these first Thursdays and have the picnic tables delivered and picked up.
I don't think the picnic tables, that's not an issue. Staff is gonna do that. Now, going forward, I don't know if we want to just continue to do this month after month after month and year after year after year. I don't know.
Well, and this is a concept here, so I think seeing how this goes and seeing how it's received, we put a budget together and move forward for next year. This was just a concept, and in June, it really did incredible. And
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And I,
There isn't.
And,
Get ready.
I mean,
I think we probably should, as part of the future budget, we should be paying a couple courts to do that.
I'm just saying that, the mayor and I talked about having additional events up there on Friday or Saturday night. And maybe having food, but we'd like to be able to take that out of that account. So we build, like once a year, we have an annual event where we have food. I think one of the reasons why June was so successful is we had free food. Right? So we can do that if we can generate funds and watch how much money we spend. But I don't have a problem this year getting you through this and getting, it's great for the community.
Okay, I think
June was fantastic.
to get off dead center here, I'm not seeing anybody saying no to June or July, August for this year.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, it's,
do we have a problem with September and October? We were planning for that.
Can we kick the can on that, have you guys have a conversation? See what you come up with.
I would say yes, but we've already had this conversation and it gets kicked back to full council. Because we discussed it at Green Space, not to waive the fees and if the city support was necessary, they would have to be paid for. And now Holly's requesting that we don't do that for the first year for August and October.
If you have an idea of what the cost is for your employees' time for all that.
I have a breakdown of employees, the cost per machine, per individual.
But it'd just be nice to know what we're talking about here. But I think even if there is some intent here to get through this first season, so to speak, if there's revenue generated, then some of that money should go back to reimburse public works for that time. I think that has to be part of the future of it. I mean, that has to be part of what we're.
Do we all understand that we're not generating revenue?
You're not generating.
The art commission is not generating
No, I mean, but-
revenue.
But what for future events is the intent.
I think Steven's talking sponsors or private fundraising
Sure.
and things like that.
The long concept here, if this took off, was that next year there would be sponsors. So there would be a particular business that would sponsor the June event or the July event. When that is the case, I fully understand that we would pay to have the city support.
Because it's not uncommon in government for one agency reimburse another for using their services. It's not just free, but it's covered.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, I didn't know. That sounds great. Let's get through the first year.
Okay, so back to Councilmember Stein's point. Everyone's okay with August, September, July, August for now. Have JR get the numbers to us and we can just revisit it at the fall.
I think that's-
Staff now has some direction.
Okay, and just to wrap up the discussion on CBB, sorry. To finish up the discussion on the chamber and CBB, their legals have it, they're finalizing the language and hopefully have it by this week. And then once they do, they will know, we'll bring it to the city and notify everyone that we have a finalized. Number 3, real quick item, special request for downtown marketing, the outdoor piano is coming back. Mr. Bain is figuring it out and trying to get the piano back and running. He thinks it'll be up by July. It'll be placed in front of the Dutch oven for the summer, just so we have it there and it'll be in time for cover. So just a special request to have it there once, and then it'll be put away for storage for the rest of the year. That's it.
Number 5, department reports, building official Ed is with us.
Thank you, Your Honor. On the agenda, we have the final plat for the Eastern Star Cottages. This is the subdivision over just south of the Eastern Star facility between West 2nd, West 3rd, 4500 block. Between the approval of the preliminary and the final plat, preliminary was approved almost 2 years ago. We had a couple of infrastructure items that needed to be corrected. One was getting the hydrant moved. Another one was a water main issue. Those have been corrected. Those were all paid for by Eastern Star. The city did not have any dollars involved in those repairs. Second item is the roadway for Elaine Circle. Was originally intended to be a public street. Eastern Star has since requested that that be a private roadway. And again, that roadway was put in at Eastern Star's dollars, not the city's. With that, the city staff agrees with approving the request to make that a private roadway, and the city staff recommends approval of the final plat that has been submitted.
Quick question, what does that do for snow removal? Are they gonna have to haul it out?
We don't have to do anything. You just keep on going outside.
They don't get to shut it across the street on
No, well, we gotta keep that on our own private.
private property. Thank you.
So move on the resolution.
Call the roll.
Gray,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Stein.
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Pickla.
Yes.
Stecker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, next up, Finance Officer Andrea. City Attorney Jim.
No report.
Director of Public Works.
Yes, Your Honor, one thing, citywide bid was completed last Thursday. We picked up 177 tons of material and 13 TV/computer model. The Y-Step Trucking was at Public Works this weekend and they did a appliance pickup. Well, actually, the people bring the appliances to Public Works, they pick them up. I didn't get a number on that, he was gone by the time I got there, but it was a lot. That's the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Nothing under engineering. Public Safety, Chief Adams.
Yes, Your Honor. In front of you tonight, there is the civil service met for new firefighter applications. And they've moved on to a certified list, and I would look for a motion to approve.
Second.
Call the roll.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Stein.
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Pickla.
Yes.
Stecker.
Yes.
Gray.
One other thing is we are in the planning stages, multi-agencies, police department, fire department, law enforcement, EMS, of having a September 11th memorial breakfast out here. Fairway is on board of helping us out. And if you all remember the trailer that is wrapped, it has some police and fire and military. So we will have an event that morning
kind of leading. It's not a fundraiser. It's just a community breakfast. So I'll have more details as the planning of that happens between all the agencies.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Chief Weevil.
Yes, Your Honor, two things real quick. First off, over the weekend, someone had put some derogatory and alarming papers on some citizens' doors. That person was just arrested 5 minutes ago by my officers. He is charged with 4 counts of harassment, 4 counts of trespass under the hate crime ordinance. So he will be in jail. Secondly, next council meeting, as you know, Captain PG is retiring on July 15th. I would like to hire his replacement next council meeting, which would put us at 19 officers, which is over our allotted amount for about 10 days. So that's, if possible, what I'd like to do. We have the money, we have the money in the budget for it. Him being at a captain level, when you also have significantly less wages. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator Bill.
Thank you, sir. First item is a resolution in the packet approving the execution of the master agreement for professional services between the city of Boone and Short Elliott Henderson Incorporated, short SEH, for general contracting. As you know, Dan's gone, so we, at least in the interim, are going to contract the engineering services out. This is not an agreement for a year or a certain amount. It's more time and material. So when we need something, we'll contact SEH. They'll provide it, and they will provide us a bill monthly. Harry from SEH is in the audience here. If you have any questions, and in the packet as well was not only the agreements and the resolution, but some of the things that go along with the agreement and the price sheet, depending on the principle who they use for the company and what they charge. We feel this is the right way to go, at least initially, till for at least a little while, and then staff will evaluate it as we continue on whether or not we think it's important to replace that position with a full-time employee, or we can handle it through this contract. In addition, as you know, Dan's duties also were the water treatment facility and the wastewater treatment facility. Those duties, at least at this point, have now fallen to me as far as the day-to-day supervision, working with the 2 grade 4s at each plant that run the plants day-to-day. And I'll ask to answer any questions you may have, or comments or concerns or anything. If not, the resolution is in there.
I guess I have a little bit concerned with workload for handling all that.
Yeah, I so. Can I say that I actually agree with you? But I've had conversations with the utility committee, and we're working on some things, and I think that'll take a couple months to see what direction we go. And I think after a couple months, we'll know what direction we want to go. And I think there'll be some further things from the utility committee brought to the full council for consideration. So I agree. I don't think it's going to be permanent, but I think it's short term. And Mike, it's not a concern, but I want to make sure we do the right thing. I want to make sure I give you guys all the information and the best way to go. And I think as we plan in the future for the city and succession plans for people that are leaving, I certainly think there are some hires that we can make and some changes in the future that will ultimately eliminate the need for an engineer position with the city, thereby saving tax money, dollars and things like that, where we can still get the things accomplished. I've had those conversations with the utility committee. I think they're on board with me. And as this moves forward, we'll be bringing that to council for a decision at some point.
The utility committee recognizes it's not going to be up to the team for Bill for a while. We're also, we have a lot of faith in Bill, and we know he's going to be looking at some other options to bring forward that might put the city on a better footing as we move forward. So we want to do it right.
If you have any questions for Perry, he's in the audience. He's the one that will handle the city. He may reassign it, but he's our direct contact, so we will have direct contact with an engineer at all times for anything that may come up. Harry also is handling a couple of our projects. He knows on the beginning of the agenda, those public hearings for the South Marshall Street construction, as well as the repairment of the walls at the water treatment plant. Those are separate projects that he's already under contract for, but he works well with our staff. He's known by our staff, and we feel that at least, you know, in temporary, this will work pretty well.
Yeah, good evening, and thanks again for letting me come over here. I appreciate this opportunity. If you have any questions for me, that's great. But we definitely look forward to this, and we'll help in any way we can. We hope to be as responsive as need be, and we will have put every effort into making sure that all of these are met quickly and as much expertise as you expect from us.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you again, Barry.
Yeah, we do need a motion. It's not.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
McGinn,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Whitlock,
Yes.
Stecker,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Next item, next item, I want to show you some pictures. We've been having some maintenance issues with this big old front window out here. I think that window was put in 1996. I had moved last year doing some work on it, just to give you an idea of what we're finding with this window. When it rains, it's leaking into inside City Hall. Chris has been working on it and dealing with what we need. We don't have the big lift, have access to it for us to look, so we called them last. I tried to call Lee today to get an update because they did some work on Friday and I had to leave and I couldn't make contact with him, but this just shows you some of the maintenance issues that we're having with that window. I'm hoping that they found the leak and plugged it, but that's not to say there may not be some issues in the future, so I at least wanted to get it on your radar and bring it to your attention. This obviously, the size of that window would be, if we need to do anything major with it, we're talking about a lot of bucks. And I'll answer any questions you may have. If not, I'll move on. The last item is talking with Dave out at the water treatment plant facility. He checked the level of our wells today. And the good news is they're at the same level as they were last month, and a few that actually had improved. So we still don't have, as you know, by ordinance, we have protocols. If we don't get some rain or it gets bad, and we'll obviously implement those at the appropriate time. But for right now, we're looking pretty good, believe it or not, for the conditions that we're in. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 6, consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that you'd like to move and discuss separately, and if not, a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Call the roll.
Stein,
Yes.
Mormon,
Yes.
Whitlock,
Yes.
Stecker,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
McGinn,
Yes.
Okay, number 7, we have nothing this evening. Number 8, mayor's comments. I want to real quick congratulate BJ again, who was named National Junior College Athletic Director of the Year today.
Yeah.
It's big time. So congratulations, thank you. And real quick, I want to thank Public Works for all the hard work, citywide cleanup. It was hot. I know those days they struggled. They struggled at times, but they got done. They got done quicker than I thought. So great job. Number 9, any council comments?
Yes, Your Honor. I have, well, first of all, I want to thank the police department for taking such quick action on the incident over the weekend, taking the ID, filing charges, getting the arrest. That was a really great job. And, you know, what happened reverberates through the community, through the LGBT community. And so I drafted a resolution for everyone to look at and read it We'll read it, and hopefully, if you're interested, we can vote on it at our next meeting. But I'll just read the text of what I wrote, and of course, if you have any suggestions on how to change it, I will do them as well. But it says, whereas the city of Boone is home to many people in the LGBTQ community, whereas the month of June is recognized as LGBTQ Pride Month, whereas there have been recent incidents of intimidation against those who advocate for LGBTQ rights, whereas there have been long-running instances of threats, harassment, intimidation, and violence against the Boone LGBTQ population. Therefore, let it be resolved that the city of Boone stands in solidarity with its LGBTQ population, condemns any threats, harassment, intimidation, and violence against them. The city of Boone will continue to strive to create welcoming and safe atmosphere towards the LGBTQ population now and into the future. So, just affirming our stance in support of this population.
I think it's well written, thank you.
What's on the agenda for next?
For next meeting, thank you. Consider that.
So if, on the agenda for the next council meeting, do you want it just in the consent agenda, or do you want a separate item on the agenda for discussion? What do you want? No.
We can put it on the consent agenda, and if anybody wants to pull out a consent and discuss it, we can do that.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Know that?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other council comments this evening? Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
Okay. All right, I'm April Birch, and I just wanted to come tonight and thank Chief Rebold and Officer Kester for taking everyone's statements and filing charges in the hate incidents that happened over the weekend. Great action, good action. Everyone really appreciates it. I know my kids do. Thank you.
Any other public comments for items not on the agenda? This meeting's adjourned.